All right, seventh graders. Today we're going to be looking at cell processes. If I had a magic school bus and could put you into it, we'd be shrinking down smaller than the size of the cell, and looking at what everything is made out of. Um, if we could shrink down and go within a cell, within any physical thing that you could touch, like a pencil or a table, or the person sitting next to you, they'd be made up of atoms. So those are the smallest units of matter. How do you like that little pop up there? That's nice. Matter is made up of atoms. That's anything that has mass and takes up space. Examples of matter, you have water, that would be made up of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. So if you follow the cursor, that would be the written form of water, H2O. And then there's some visuals for that. So if you looked inside of an atom, it's made up of an electron that orbits a proton and a neutron. So next to each word, there's also a charge. Electrons are negatively charged, protons are positively charged, and neutrons have no charge at all. And then some examples of atoms in a solid, liquid, plasma, or gas. So in different states of matter, solids, they've got really strong bonds together, these atoms do, and that's why a table does not give when you push into it. Um, there's another nice pop-up. Liquids have weak bonds, so that's why a liquid's going to move, it's going to change its shape if you pour it into a different containing vessel, and also it's going to move if you touch it with your hand. And then gas has no bonds, and that's why it's really easy to sweep your hand through the air in front of you, because those atoms are not bonded together. So we could look at things in two different ways. You could look at pure substances and you could look at mixtures. Pure substances would be elements or compounds. Elements are all the same type of atom, and compounds are substances made from two or more different types of atoms. And then, as this like chart on the side shows, we could look at mixtures. So a homogeneous mixture, which are the same. Pop-ups keep coming. Homogeneous mixtures, which are the same throughout, with identical properties everywhere in the mixture. So if I took a big handful of mayonnaise, that would be an example of a homogeneous mixture. Heterogeneous mixture have different properties when sampled from different areas. So if I were to take like iron shavings and put them into sand um, and mix them up, if I sample different parts of that area, of an area, it might be more sand and less iron shavings, or it might be more iron shavings and less sand. And then you can look at that picture on the right, and it shows if you could look at the atoms within a heterogeneous mixture, a solution, a single element. If you look at the single element, it's just showing that all these atoms, it's all the same atom. In a compound, for example, like H2O, you have a oxygen atom with two hydrogen atoms on it. So it's made up of more than one atom. So if we looked at living things, there's four major organic compounds that make up living things. This slide here is just going to be text, and then I'll show you some pictures and examples of each one of these in the slides to come. So carbohydrates, they're really good for using for energy and structure. So a carbohydrate would be something, if you're an athlete, you would load up on carbohydrates by eating pasta. An example of other foods you would see them in, sugars have carbohydrates, potatoes, and starch is also a carbohydrate. Um, Lipids are used to store energy. So if you pinch yourself in your belly area, you're going to see some fat or feel some fat. That's going to be for storage and warmth. Um, Other examples of lipids are steroids. Your cell membranes are primarily composed of lipids. Um, And we'll get into detail of what that lipid membrane is made up of, but it's a phospholipid. So cell membranes, fats, and oils would be your examples of lipids. Proteins are used for structure. They make up enzymes and they help to fight disease. So an area where you'd find a lot of protein is muscle. So if you're a bodybuilder, the reason why bodybuilders eat protein shakes is because they're constantly using their muscles and they need the protein to help refuel their muscles. And then last but not least is nucleic acids. They're used to store genetic information, and they have the instruction manual for how to make proteins. This would be DNA and RNA. And as you learned earlier, nucleic acids would primarily be found, if it's DNA, is going to be found in the nucleus of the cell. When it makes a copy of itself, that's in the form of RNA. So here's an example, is the picture of your carbohydrates. You have glucose and fructose are two examples. So in this side, you have pictures of foods that are carbohydrates. If you were to write out the chemical formula of two different carbohydrates, this is what it would look like. You have carbon atoms, you just write with a C. Bonded to, here you have bonded to an oxygen and also to a hydrogen. And we'll learn a little bit more about chemical bonding later on in the class. Now we have lipids, so fats, oils, waxes are examples of lipids. Here is an electron microscope picture of fat tissue in a person. And this is an example of what a lipid would look like. So you have this really long branch chain of carbons. This part here that I'm kind of circling with, this part hates water. And in a lipid membrane, this part loves water. Okay, then you have your proteins. So you have cheeses, eggs, meats. These are all really good examples of foods that have a lot of protein in them. This is what all basic proteins look like. They have a nitrogen bonded to a carbon. This R group is going to change from different for different amino acids that build up a protein. And then you have another carbon. But this is the basic structure of the building block of a protein. Okay, this slide, we've got nucleic acids. So this is another electron microscope picture. This is actually chromosomes, so human chromosomes, magnified under electron scanning microscope. Within a nucleic acid, you have these two different types of base pairs. If you look on the back wall of the classroom, there we go. Now, I could have done that a while ago and you wouldn't have seen that pop up. So these nucleic acids are built of these two different base pairs. If you looked at the back of the classroom, there's the picture of the DNA. That's the wound ladder. The rungs of the ladder, so the part that connects in between your DNA strand, is made up of these either pyrimidine or purine bases. And that would be in your DNA. So an inorganic compound is just anything that's not made up of carbon. So if it's organic, organic in this sense, when we're talking about it this way, means something that's made up of carbon. Inorganic would be something like table salt is sodium and chloride put together. Those are both, it is inorganic because there's no carbon in table salt. So anything in this sense, anything that's inorganic is not made up of carbon. So water is really important to living things. Most living things are made up of at least 50%. When you looked at the comparison of bacteria cells and animal cells in section 1.3 of the book lesson on Monday, you saw that humans and bacteria have exactly the same amount of water in their cells. The reason that's important is you need it for chemical reactions, also for insulation, maintaining internal temperature, cooling, a bunch of different things are what you use water for. When you sweat, the liquid in your body goes onto the surface of your skin. That water has a cooling effect, so it will pull warmth from your body uh, off your body and help your body to cool down. Inside your body, it takes a lot of energy to heat up water. So if you've ever put a pot on the stove and tried to boil it, you have to put it under a flame for a long time. So water is pretty resistant to heating up, so it makes a good insulator for your body. Um, so now you've got your cell, and it's got all those organelles inside of it performing functions, and then it's got to separate itself from kind of the outside of your body, whatever area or whatever organ or structure that cell is a part of. Um, so the cell needs to be able to, while it's got this protective barrier and it performs functions inside of itself, it needs to import materials um, to build proteins and to do things, to get energy, do things it needs to do. So it needs to be able to get things in. And then within the city, it's also creating waste, and it needs to get some of that waste out, as well as if it builds something important that's going to be used elsewhere. Um, it needs to be able to send things outside of the cell. So transportation is going to happen in two ways. You have passive transport, which does not take energy, and active transport, which takes energy. So if you think passive, if you think of somebody passively sitting by, so if I'm passively sitting by as JT pokes me in the head, um, you could picture me just sitting there not doing anything. And then active, you think if you live an active lifestyle, you're someone that runs and is moving around. So that could be a way that you could remember it needing energy. So diffusion is the movement of things from high concentration to low concentration. Um, it's a passive process. So if I take a bottle of perfume and I put it in the classroom and I open it up, the scent from that perfume is going to diffuse throughout the room. So it's going to, inside the bottle, it's very high concentration. But outside of the bottle in our classroom, it's low concentration. So the molecules of the perfume are going to want to leave the bottle and spread throughout the room. It doesn't require any energy to do that. It's just the movement of gas particles as they bounce around and ricochet through the room are going to transport some of the gas from the perfume through the rest of the room. That's going to happen until it reaches an equilibrium. You could think of this also in like droplets of dye. If you added dye to water, it's going to slowly diffuse out through the whole glass of water until it's eventually just equalized out and it's all one concentration. And then here's our three different types of, three other types of transport. We've got facilitated diffusion. So that could be the movement of items into and out of the cell. Um, it doesn't require energy, but it does require a channel to move through the cell. This would be typically for larger molecules that are trying to get in and out of a cell. Then there's osmosis, and that's just the diffusion of water into and out of a cell. Water can diffuse anywhere. If you look at the picture up here, it's just showing the water diffusing across. This is the membrane of the cell wall. So the water can just go through. It doesn't need any energy. It doesn't have to go through a protein channel. Um, uh, and then for active transport is this picture down here. ATP is just is a quick energy source for cells. So this is showing that it's using energy, and you're going to move an item from this example is moving it from outside in, but it has to go through a channel and it requires energy. So there's going to be a small release of energy as that molecule moves across the membrane, and that's called again active transport. And that's it for today's lesson. What you're going to do now is after you finish the lesson, you're going to go to one of the quick labs that's around the classroom. So make sure that you finished up your notes, review the video if you need to, and then you're going to go pick one of the stations in the classroom to start on a lab. Okay, see you in class.